Well, we appreciate you all taking the time to join us here on this Friday afternoon across the world. We're joined this day, obviously, by our good friend John Solider and tremendous Tracy Jones. And we've got some great information. Several months ago, I poked the bear, as we would say, with John, and said, John, it'd be a good idea to do a revised version of your book, Moving Up. And from there, with great enthusiasm, I'm going to say that, John, with great enthusiasm, you took on the task of re-editing Moving Up, which became Moving Up 2020, and from there, some great things have happened with this. So John, take it away.
Well, welcome everybody, and appreciate you all being here on a Friday afternoon. I know Fridays are precious, so we won't waste your time. But there is just so much going on in the what I consider to be the small business movement. And this call this afternoon is not about one company, because we have people on this call, believe it or not, that represent a number of different network marketing companies. Some are multi-million-dollar earners in our industry. Some are six-figure earners in our industry. And what they have in common is they're all represented in the new Moving Up 2020 book, which I'm happy that we finally got done, and we're going back and forth today. The Spanish edition will be ready digitally anyway in about 3 weeks. So if you have Spanish friends, Spanish downlines that most of you do, you're working on Spanish people in your business, you'll have it in Spanish as well. And we're still considering bringing it out in French as well for the Quebec market and eventually the France market. So anyway, things are going great. But when I was putting the text together for this book, and of course, the first Moving Up book, some of you know this, some of you read this, some of you were friends of mine then, and some of you were in that book. In 2005 was the very first edition. And in 2011, when I turned 50 years old, I decided to do a second edition and kind of a re-upping, if you will, of the concept of moving up. Because what do we do in network marketing? We move up, right? We move up in rank. We move up in income. We move up in stature. We move up in ability. We move up in leadership. We move up in all the things that are important for a small business expert to have under their wing, so to speak, when they sit down and they talk to somebody about changing their life, changing their career, changing their future for themselves and their families. So, these are all relevant things that are represented in not only in the book, but obviously in what we do every day, going out there to influence people, hopefully in the proper manner. And then, of course, Keith, as he just shared, started to twist my arm back in February and say, you ought to do it one more time. And I said, it's funny because with the year 2020 coming, there's a lot that can be done with that. 2020 vision, 2020 ability, 2020 conceptually, 2020, use what you want, right? I mean, I'm sure in the coming months we'll see the 2020 year used to death by our friends in the advertising industry. But I wanted to do something around that. But I also wanted to do something where I could include a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past, people I'm working with today, people that I still work with, even if they're not in my company or organization that I work with, because I just think so highly of them and have such great respect and admiration for them that I said, let me include some of my friends, some of my colleagues, and let's do this one more time. And this is it. There is no more moving up after this. This is the last one. So if you're in it, you're in the last edition that will be written. The good news is, of course, I've got another idea for another book that's going to come out in a few months under another title. So we'll talk about that down the road. But all that said, today's not about me. It's about you all that are in the book, or you all that want to use the book to promote your business. And the concept that I really want to start to enforce and talk about is one that's called small business expert, or small business expertise, if you will. Everyone on this call, and hopefully you're making notes, I consider you to be a small business expert. Now, when I say a small business expert, let's define that. What is a small business in the United States or Canada or Mexico? Small business is basically a business with less than 500 employees. Well, that's all of you. That's me. That's also a business that does roughly less than $1 million a year of annual income, and that's for the most part most of us as well. There are some people on the call that are making more than $1 million a year that are represented in the book, but for the most part, about $1 million, is kind of the stopping off point for a small business, okay? My good friend Mark Cuban, okay, who I'm sure you all know from Shark Tank, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, good old Dallas boy, originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I know we've got a very special friend of mine on from Pittsburgh today. But Mark Cuban always talks about small business when he gives lectures. And, I was listening to him the other day, and he said that there's 28 million small businesses in the United States. So I wanted to fact check Mark, and I actually went to the Small Business Administration a few minutes ago, and they say that there's 30.2 million people out there that own a small business in the United States. For Canada, you've got about 4 million people in a 30 million person market that are considered to be small business owners. So that's what we represent. But all of you have the ability to represent yourself as a small business expert. Now, if you happen to be in the book, you got one leg up on the fact that when you sit down with a prospect for your business, you can explain to them, look, don't believe that I'm a small business expert, but this guy John Solider and this guy Keith Hooper, they must think that I am because I'm included in this new book. And these guys cumulatively have over 60 years of expertise in the direct selling field, so they thought enough of me to include me in this new book, Moving Up 2020. So now the book becomes a tool for you. Now, that's a little bit what I wanted to say today. But in searching for the right people to market the book, to bring the book out to the marketplace, I wanted somebody special. I had a number of friends in the industry that have book companies and all of that, but they're geared just towards network marketing. And I didn't want that. I wanted somebody that crossed the specter, if you will, into traditional business and into self-development. And Keith had a very good suggestion. He said, why don't you call my friend Tracy Jones up at Tremendous Leadership? And I said, wow, do you think they'd even consider taking on my book? And he said, yeah, I think they will. So long story short, he introduced a young lady into my life and our family's life that's become a quick friend and a great asset in bringing this book to market. And she'll probably explain a little bit to you today if you haven't been on her website, and hopefully you all have. That's tremendousleadership.com. And if you haven't gotten the new book ordered yet, you can order it. Just go to New Titles, and you can order the Moving Up book. There's quantity discounts, of course, and you can figure that out on your end what you want to do. And it's also available, by the way, digitally for those of you that want to read something over the weekend digitally. You can get that immediately. But that's the end of my advertisement. What I want to do is I want to introduce this lady because she's got some great concepts to share. She speaks all over the United States. Amongst other things, she's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, 12 years as an officer in the United States Air Force. That alone makes me afraid of her, and it should you as well. She served in the Gulf War, served time both in Germany as well as in England during the Gulf War, and learned obviously a tremendous amount with her military career. But going one step further, she is the daughter of Charlie Tremendous Jones. And when we talk about giving out books instead of giving out business cards or flyers or brochures to people for our business, Charlie Tremendous Jones was the guy that created that conceptually. And she can talk a little bit better about her dad certainly than I can, but the little bit that I knew of Charlie was he took that concept and he created a company with it. He created an enterprise because just think about it for a minute. We're all educated people on this call today, whether you're formally educated, college, high school, whatever. We're all smart people. That being the case, I know I cannot throw out a book. If somebody gives me a book, whether I buy it, whether they give it to me, whether I find it, I have a really hard time throwing it out. And he took that idea and he created enterprise with it. And he reached out to some of his friends at the time that were in the self-development world, some of the legends of the industry, and he started to market their books for them, and people started to do the same. So one of the collateral things that we get as a result of doing business with Tremendous Leadership is not only the fact that you can obviously use our book to promote, our business, our network marketing business to people in your community and set yourself up as a small business expert. Those two things alone are great, but the fact that you're going to have the ability to tap into some of the classics that Tremendous Leadership carries. So with that, without further ado, let me turn the call over to my new friend and good friend, Tracy Jones. And Tracy's got some things for you today that you're going to want to write down, and I'm going to be quiet and let her talk, and I'm going to make some notes on my end. So Tracy, say hello. It's all yours.
Hello, everyone. John and Keith, thank you so much. I've been really looking forward to this, and thank you for the great introduction. For the folks on the call, I'll blow out a little bit about what John was referring to. Again, my father was a motivator, flunked out of school in the 8th grade, really difficult, came from poverty, really difficult upbringing, but that was where he started, and that's not where he finished. And he was always really quick to explain that to people that there was the only place to go was moving on up. And one of those quotes that he has that so many people remember is that you're going to be the same person that you are 5 years from now that you are today, except for just 2 things: the people you meet and the books you read. And as John said, he made it his purpose and his passion in life to meet as many people. And you say, well, Tracy, what if they're not all tremendous? That's okay, because the untremendous ones teach you as much as the tremendous ones. But getting out there, meeting people, which all of you in the businesses that you are in, your lifeblood is referrals and connections. So you guys already have that done. But the other thing is the books. And he would probably scan probably 30 books a week. I mean, he was a very slow reader, but he was a voracious reader. And he'd pick books up, be reading simultaneously. And so for those of you that knew him, and we have a lot of stuff of his out on video and on the YouTube, he was just this effervescent, just tenacious, very pragmatic student of life. And he knew what it was like to be down, and he knew what it was like to be up. He knew what it was like to have people by his side, and he knew what it was like to get stabbed in the back. He was authentic. And he was constantly pouring out this encouragement. And all of it was because he was constantly being filled with great people, great books, great thoughts. He was a deeply religious man. He had a great, just a grounded faith in Christ. So that spiritual motivation came in there too. But people would just look at me after he'd get down off the stage and go, is he always like that? And I'm like, you know what? He is. Whether he was at home with me or we were just working out in the yard or he was on stage in front of tens of thousands of people, he was that. Because when you fill yourself up with great things, great ideas, and the influence of great people, that's what you pour out. So he was a huge believer in books. And again, flunked out of school in the 8th grade, not schooled at all, and in this whole thing where he's with other people that were very educated, I think it's Jim Rohn that said, formal education will make you a living, self-development or self-education will make you a fortune. And he was a big believer in that. The other thing, as John said, is he would tell me, Tracy, for every book I gave away for free, I'd have people order like 10. So he was of the mindset, the more you give away, that the more comes back to you. And again, he was always careful to tell me, Tracy, we don't give stuff away with the intention of getting something back, because that's trading. If I give you something with the expectation of getting something in return, and it's all God's anyways. So his thing was, I'm just going to sow as many seeds, and books were wonderful. The other thing for all you in this incredible book, and John allowed me to write the foreword in it, and I was so excited to do it, reading all your stories, is it does give you a lot of clout when you go out and share with people. My father always said everybody should have a book. I don't care if you're in ministry or a school teacher or just especially a small business person, because when you interact with somebody, you leave them with your words, your atmosphere, your persona, that old eye to eye, handshake to handshake, heart to heart. But when you go away, if you have a book you can leave them with, they still have a piece of you with them. So he was very serious about this. This wasn't just and if the disciples hadn't written down the words of Jesus, we wouldn't have the words that he preached. So it's really important to get this out there, and you can leave this with people as you're crossing paths with people in the airport or just on the sidewalk or just asking somebody, hey, there's a seat between us, do you want to come sit next to me? And all these random encounters that can turn into the most purposeful things in somebody's life, and now you have a book. And time is short, people are busy, and my dad always says, don't give people business cards. He said, I would give people business cards, and sometimes they'd throw them away right in front of me. And he says, that would just hurt my feelings. But if you give somebody a book, and better yet, if you even write something inside, or what we call crack the cover, just open up a page and tell them about, hey, I thought of you when I read this on page 23. Well, they go look at it. And once people look at that book, and you guys are all in this, so you can go ahead and talk to them about that and say, I'm in this. I'd love to hear more about your story. And you know what? If you think that you have somebody else that you'd like to share share this story with, I'd love to get him a copy of the book too. And you guys know as well as I do that referrals are our lifeblood, and it's great to do. And John and Keith have incredible tips in the book about technology and branding and all that stuff. But boy, referrals, when somebody just word of mouth, there's nothing like organic growth to really build that. The other thing I wanted to share with you in our time together is not just the background about the importance of books and how how books have always been just an important driver in my life. And if you're stuck in a rut, and open up a book and read. If you're heartbroken and you've made some mistakes where you can't even talk to your spouse about it, that's okay. Open up a book and read, because books are just going to touch you in a way that nothing else can. And sometimes people would come to my father and ask for advice, and he'd say, come on in here, pick a book off the shelf, to which they would. They'd proceed to sit there and read for about 15 minutes aloud to my father, and at the end they'd look at him with tears in their eyes and say, how did you know that's exactly what I needed? Okay? And there's just something about the beauty of a book. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the business that you are in, the free enterprise business. So John told you I went into the military. So I was raised under the tutelage of a motivational speaker. I tell people my childhood was like a cross between boot camp and a sitcom. Okay, it was really funny all the time, but man, was it driven. And I can remember my dad, sitting around the table every day, in kindergarten. What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, Daddy, I just want to make it to first grade, kind of thing. So it was always really very intensely driven, but a lot of fun, just like what we do. So I grew up sitting under Ken Blanchard and Zig Ziglar and Norman Vincent Peale, all these great, and going to all these great network marketing meetings. And I'm like, my gosh, these people are living it. They're walking the walk. They're talking the talk. They're getting people all inspired. And then I go off and I do something radically different, because I thought, you know what? That's for them. That's for the salesy types. And I'm not a salesy type. I'm a left-brainer. I'm an analytic. I'm an engineer. So what did I do? I went off. I went into the military, which was great. I went into high tech, a Fortune 100 company. That was great. I went into defense contracting. That was great. I went into work for the National Security Agency. That was great. And you know what? After about 20 years, I had to look at myself and go, you know what, Tracy? These have all been great, but I'm missing something. And I always thought that bigger was better. But bigger also means more bureaucratic. And I would keep hitting these walls. And I'm like, why don't people want to do the right thing? Why don't people see the waste? And bureaucracies, there's a lot of good things that comes with big companies, and there's a lot of bad things that come in there too, and a lot of toleration of things. And yet I grew up with my father, who was a life insurance salesman, and around all these people that, the harder you worked, the more you made. And you know what? If you didn't work, the bills didn't get paid. So I was coming to this point, mid-40s, and I'm like, okay, what does this all mean? Could it be that I really am a closet entrepreneur? And I'm like, there's no way I'm not coded like this. And all of a sudden, but my father passed away 11 years ago. We had the blessing of about 10 years to say goodbye to him with cancer. And all this time in my head, I was getting things proven out, the things that I thought would be my career, the companies I thought I'd stay with. And I'm like, you know what? I'm seeing things differently at 45 than I did at 25 and 35. And I just had to look and say, what in the grand scheme of things is my life going to count for? And I kept I would go into bigger industries. I'd move into different countries. I worked all over the world, and it was all the same stuff. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, my father passed away, and right 2 days before he passed, we had a little discussion, and I said, you know what, Dad? I'm going to come back and I'm going to run the company, and I'm either going to put a beautiful bow on it that's honoring what you did, because I know how hard he had worked, even though I left home at 17 and we never worked together because I considered us so radically different. I said, or I'll give it a shot. I've never done anything creative in my life. I don't understand small business. I've never been on nonprofit boards. I don't get this, but we'll give it a whirl, and if it's meant to happen, God's going to bring the ravens to feed me, kind of thing. And so here here we are 11 years later, just with the blessing, and I realized when I got in here, I suddenly understood the role of small business in the economy. And I was at a board meeting. I'm on the Penn Mutual Center for Veterans Affairs, where they take veterans out of the military and train them in the financial planning and life insurance sector, and they give them certifications. And Dan Henninger was there when he was speaking, and one of the things he was talking about, he's a writer with the Wall Street Journal, really, which has a conservative slant, but he's so pragmatic and analytical. And this is not a political thing at all. This is pure economics. But what he talked about, and again, it's hit me, as John said, the stats on small businesses, I thought, oh my gosh, I worked for companies, Fortune 100 companies. This is who runs the world. When I work for the government, this is where the money comes from. And all of a sudden I'm in small business and I realize the government doesn't have any money. And these huge companies, they're not the ones that give to nonprofits and churches and hospitals. That's small independent businesses and donors. And then I looked at the stats at what the backbone of the American economy and other global economies is, and it's free enterprise. And one of the things that Dan Henninger talked about was the incredible importance of the private sector economy. And, you know, this is not about, is it capitalism, communism, Marxism, socialism, because I spent a lot of time in ex-Eastern Europe and in Africa, other countries where they're coming out of communism and socialism, and they're starting to embrace free enterprise systems. And you can see the lights coming back into them. But the private sector economy, and America's at a really critical juncture here. The problem that we've got going on with us right now, that it's been suppressed in this company because all our leaders have a lack of knowledge. They haven't been through the private sector. And this is not a political announcement. Now, of course, our current president does because he is a businessman. But the problem is when you get government officials that come from nonprofit or activists or social things, they have this very idealistic mindset that they think is going to work in the economy, and they haven't run an economy. You haven't had to make payroll. You haven't had to get people motivated to earn a living. And so you get this skewed idea of how things work in the world. And so we're really at, I had to laugh because when John first gave me the manuscript, when it was written before, it was horrendous. I came back to run the business in 2008. You remember 2008? That's when the wall hit. And I thought, of all the times for me to become an entrepreneur, this is the worst possible time to do it. But you know what? It was actually the best possible time, because that's when everybody realized all these big behemoths that were too big to fail, guess what? They fell apart. And you know what? They will again. Now, we had to rewrite this book and say, you know what? The economy's booming, at least for those of us in America. Unemployment, for all intents and purposes, is at zero. And, I mean, you can't hire enough people, okay? All thanks to the government getting off the throat of private economy. Okay? That has to happen. The economy has to run itself. So the basic driver of the U.S. economy is private industry. And how do we find calm in all these crises is through this free enterprise system. So I just am so excited to talk to this group of people because the more all over the world we can invite people into this world, the more we have a chance of battling all the people that have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not trying to crush us, but there are some entities that are going to say, well, no, we can all be fair and altruistic together. And folks, that's just not real life. Okay? And so what I love about free enterprise is people get to determine their financial futures, they get to earn their worth, and then they get to take their hard-earned money and they get to put it where their heart follows. And that's what drives a lot of this stuff. So and in your organizations, just the more you can get out and encourage people, and the economy's booming now, but as sure as anything, you know it will cycle back and forth because that's just the nature of life. It goes back and forth and back and forth. But you guys encouraging people to take control of their financial destiny and to grow their own independent businesses. And now that I've gone over to the other side, and now I've been an entrepreneur for 11 years in a small business, and I mean a tiny little business, but I have been more alive, more inspired, more happy, more knowing that my life has meaning. And I did some great things before. Guys, I went to war for my country, okay? I put out great technologies that changed the planet, but there is nothing like carving out your own niche and growing your own business and earning your own money and taking care of the people out underneath you and providing a product for people that's going to impact their life and change it for a positive way. So I just, with that's the end of my my schooling on everything I see. But I just got to tell you, I'm so thankful that John connected us with this book, because really, Free Enterprise, we're a leadership and a personal development company. But so many times when I get asked to talk to more traditional brick-and-mortar companies, it's the number one thing is people are disengaged or there's poor leadership. And you guys know, in areas like when you're running a small business, you don't get to stick around and exist if you don't have great leadership, because you can't absorb the inefficiencies, the laissez-faire, the macro, the micro. You just can't. It's survival of the fittest, and it's collaboration. And that's the way humanity is supposed to be. So I'm just absolutely delighted to be on this call with you all. And I'm so thankful. I was so excited to read your stories and hearing how you've all changed the world. And just you're dealers in hope, like I am. I'm a dealer in hope. And people are so hurting out there, whether it's an awful marriage or somebody that died, or just a Monday morning job where they're going through tremendous physical duress because they can't stand their job. People are looking for solutions. And you, in just a small way, even if reading this book gives them hope that maybe I'm not ready to do it, but it's so incredibly wonderful to hear that there's other people that are doing it, and you just don't know what seed you're going to sow. That's going to grow and into a harvest that you can reap in the years to come. So I thank you for all you're doing. And I hope this book goes millions and millions and millions of copies in every language out there. And we are all one race, and that's the human race. And the more I travel all over the world, even in third world countries that have been ravaged, Uganda with Idi Amin, Kosovo with Milosevic, these people, once they have shed off the evil, they are ready to grow, and they are hungry, and they are entrepreneurial, and they have that God seed, that spark in them that wants to be more than just told to just show up and exchange time for money. They want something transformational, not transactional. And that's what John in this book, and that's what you guys are living. So I know there are days when you don't feel like it. There are some times where I don't feel pretty tremendous either. But you just got to stay the course and know that in the end, this is the only way, and this is the right way, and the victory's been won, and you just got to keep on keeping on and moving up.
Great. Well, Tracy, thank you for everything, and just a couple things to reiterate. Just the fact that your dad read 30 books a week or scanned 30 books a week. I always tell my kids I'm reading 3 at a time, and now I really feel inferior. but that's how you get smart, and that's how you get the concept, and that's how you build great companies.
Yeah, and you said that, and a key point for the people, you don't have to read the whole thing. And some people are like, oh my gosh, I'm like, did you read that other book? And they're like, well, I just have to finish this other one. It's taken me forever. I'm like, no. Take it off. It's like wearing something that doesn't fit. If it doesn't capture your attention, and even if you just get one good thought, keep it going.
Exactly.
Tracy, this is Keith. If I could, Tracy, when you read John's book, you made some comments to me about that regardless of the industry that somebody's in, the value of the information that's in that book and how we can leverage that to start conversations and improve their lives. You want to speak to that possibly?
Well, absolutely. All the chapters he talks about, and again, I think I even put in the foreword, I'm not in this business, but anybody looking to grow something or help other people become better individuals or scale or get traction will absolutely be able to use it. You talk about your scheduling and your daily method of operations. You talk about multiple streams of incomes. You talk about money, you talk about social media, you talk about branding, you talk about differentiating yourself. You talk about the Pareto principle, you talk about adversity, you talk about charity. I've worked in 20 different industries all over the world. These are universal principles that apply no matter where you are. I don't care if you're in the most bureaucratic, I don't care if you're working in politics. This stuff still applies. It does, because these are basic life principles that you need to be a good steward of your time, your money, and to make the world a better place. And that's what Free Enterprise is. It's impacting the world to be a better place.
So if there's 30 million small business owners, there's information in that book that will impact 30 million people if they're exposed to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's not, like I said, what I loved about it is, and you guys know in some of the network marketing or direct scales, people can get very parochial. Well, they're not in my upline. We don't want to hear what they have to say. And I'm like, well, come on now. I mean, wonderful wisdom is wonderful wisdom. And when I grew up, everybody cross-collaborated and shared, principles of growing their business. But if I share this with somebody else, and they're going to go with somebody else. And that's the way publishing used to be, too. And that is so 1990s. Everybody's now sharing with everybody, and if your product is better and they want it, if that works for them better than my product, so be it. I'm just here to help people. And once you open up to that, you become such a resource, whether they land with your company or they go with somebody else. That's not the end goal. You know what I'm saying? You're looking at a bigger picture, just helping people, and then people will be drawn to you because of that.
My wife Sandra and I had the great pleasure of knowing your dad for many years. And we were at the Norman Vincent Peale Foundation winter event down in Palm Springs. And it was great pleasure to be with him, and we were able to sit with the people from the Napoleon Hill Foundation as well, and got a chance to meet with Art and Lois Linkletter. And it was all of those contacts with that because of reading books and making connections. Your father's part, you'll be the same 5 years from now as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. And, Tracy, you're carrying on that legacy tremendously, and we're very, very honored that you've taken on the task of publishing John's book and getting it out to the world.
Thank you so much. And like I said, you guys know how to get a hold of me if you need anything or want to talk more about what you're going through. And the other thing is we can't do it by ourselves. You can't get it right without the right people. And we're there to prop each other up. And that's why the books and the calls and the people, and John, and Keith, your networks are just essential for people. The minute we start thinking we can go this on our own, boy, we're headed for heartache. Trust me on that. You guys know you probably tried to go it on your own at one time and been like, "Oof, we're not going to do that again."
That's for sure. Well, Tracy, thanks so much again. And I've got just a couple of other things here, and we'll take a couple of questions or some input. When we put this together, what kept me going, and this was, by the way, when you read the book. We went through a very dark time as a family, as some of you are well aware. Jose and I and our kids, we went through a very dark time, and a lot of you were there for me, and I appreciate that on a personal level. But when I went through this was a point where it kept me going at times. You go through this very dark time in your personal life and your family life with a family member who's having a very difficult time. And then you read somebody's story, and you go, wow. I mean, we have people who were refugees from countries like you just described that came to North America for a better life. We had people in there who had serious health challenges, serious mental challenges, serious challenges with family, serious challenges with other things. So as I'm putting this together, I'm just getting inspired. I'm just sitting there saying, like, wow, you know what? Jim Rohn had a great statement about, seed, soil, sunshine, rain, miracle of life. That's all it's been here for the last 10,000 years, and it'll be here 10,000 years from now. Well, what are you going to do with it? And I was saying, this too shall pass, what was going on in our life, and to some degree it has. But I was inspired just, reading the stories of those of you who are on this call that are part of the book and what you've done with your lives, most importantly. Your business, your business is part of your life. It's not who you are. It's what you've done as an individual. So very, very, very inspiring, and, going to do it again, at some point here, as I said earlier, with another concept. But more than that, let's talk about this book for a minute. So you know how to get it, tremendousleadership.com, new titles, be available in Spanish in about 3 weeks, available in English now. The books are either en route or there. Tracy, I don't even know if they arrived yet. I know
they're there. We've been shipping. And if David Kreitz is on the phone, thank you for your order that just came through.
Oh,
so yeah,
okay.
we've had a bunch of orders, and they shipped out I think 2 days ago. So you all should be getting your books.
Perfect. So the books are on their way. This small business expert concept, okay, is something that Keith and I kicked around, and I talked to some of you about it. I know I talked to Foster Woos about it. I talked to my friend Arlene about it, who's on the call, I believe, and my friend Karen, and a couple other people that I mentioned it to. I think Wally and I discussed it, and I don't know, I may have discussed it with some of the rest of you too. I think my friend Jean Carlos down in Florida, I think him and I discussed it. But anyway, all that said, the idea is very, very simplistic, and that goes back to these numbers, right? 30 million people that are in small business. So, when we look at our business from what they call the 10,000-foot level now, we say, well, do people want to be in small business? Of course they do. Everything Tracy just talked about with her dad and herself is exactly it. People want to be self-employed. They want to be able to control as much as we can control, right, in any business, right? They want to be able to have control. When they get up in the morning, they need to know what they're working for, right? And, when you're working for somebody else, that's a very, very difficult thing. I've never done it. I've never had a job as an adult, so I don't know what that's like. I've worked with people, but I've never worked, for somebody, so I don't even know what that's like on a personal level. Some of you obviously do. But here's what I do know. Every man, every woman, no matter what their background is, would love to have a business. That business can be part-time. They don't have to be full-time in your company. Okay, we have a lot of part-time people. Most of us on this call, we make our living off of part-time people. But those people have a dream too. They want something better. They want to be able to give their kids better educations. They want to be able to drive a better car. They want to be able to fund their SEP retirement account. They want to be able to put money away for their futures, okay, just like you and I do. So once again, what this book does is it says, hey, if I'm in the book, I'm a small business expert, and here it is. I'm in a book. I'm on page 42, and let's go there for a second. Okay, and I'm just picking page 42 out of the air here, and another book in front of me. But to that point, if you're the person on page 42, that's where you open up the book and you sign it to them. And come up with some little thing that you can sign to them. I use a couple of different things when I sign books for people. Come up with something that's yours, whether it's scriptural, whether it's self-development, whether you want to, quote somebody, whatever you want to do, find that place where you are in the book and endorse it, because it's your book. We just happen to put it together, but it's your book. It's a tabulation of all of these stories of 35 human beings that wanted something better in their lives, went out and got it. So wherever you are there, utilize it, once again, as a tool. Now, what if you're not in the book and you're on this call? I know there's some folks that are on here that aren't in the book, okay? You can use it the same way. Use it just like Charlie Tremendous Jones did. Give the book away and say, look, I'm not in this particular book. Maybe you'll be in the next one. There'll be opportunities for that down the road. But at the end of the day, let me tell you about my friend. Let me tell you about my upline here. Let me tell you about the person that I work with here that's mentoring me that happens to be in this book. What if your immediate upline's not in the book? Doesn't matter, okay? Use the book once again as a tool, whether you know the people or not that are in it. Use it as a tool, because that's what it's intended to be, is, these people's stories with some of the concepts. And those concepts, by the way, just like, we're mentioning some industry legends, that Charlie, worked with and Tracy grew up with. But, when we mention those people, the concepts in those books were taught to me by my mentors, okay, who go back to the beginning of the industry. Larry Thompson, for example, and Mark Hughes, and Jim Rohn, for that matter, who I knew a little bit. And back before that, Bobby DePue, who I knew. I spent 3 days with Bobby. Bobby was the smartest person I ever met with mathematics and marketing plans way back. Most of you have never heard of Bobby probably, but Bobby was involved with Best Lines many, many years ago, one of the kind of the originators in the industry. And unfortunately, a lot of these folks aren't with us anymore. But, they're the people that I learned some of those concepts from. And then I learned some of those concepts just, working with them and seeing that they work. The 10-penny principle, for example. I don't know if Karen is on the call or not, but if she is, I'll go to her in a minute. If she's here, I'm going to ask her to tell you what she's done with the 10-penny principle that I shared with her in 1993 and what it's done for her and her family. But let me do this, Keith. Let me go back to you for a minute here, and there's a couple of people I'm going to just call on quick and see if they have any questions or input, assuming that they're still with us.
All right, we'll try to do that, John. Like I say, we've got a lot of people on the call, so if we open it up, it's probably going to be noisy. But so if I could ask you, if you're somewhere where it's noisy or you're not going to speak, if you could mute your phone, that would be great. And if you don't have a mute, hit *6. And if you could do that before we open the lines, that would be incredible. Because if you wait until I unmute it and then you hit *6, you'll unmute everybody. So. Please don't *6 after I open it. So we're going to open the lines up here. All right, John, you were going to go to?
Well, first I want to go, because I believe she's here. She texted me that she was. Hopefully she still is. I want to go to a good friend of mine out in Pittsburgh that I've worked with since the late 1980s and watched her create some great businesses and downline organizations, and she's a student of everything that's in this book, and she happens to be in the book. Arlene, are you with us? Arlene,
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Why don't you just share some of your wisdom, if you will, as, by the way, the first female employee ever of Sony Corporation in the United States. Short time after that, we met, and she got multi-level and has lit it up ever since. But, why don't you share whatever you want to share?
Well, I think that I haven't read the book yet because I haven't received it yet, but I can't wait because I've read every one of your books. And once again, as Tracy said, every time you read a book, you learn more and more and more. But the jewel of everything in my life is who you meet, and you are one of the jewels. What can I say? 35 years ago, you opened me up to leaving the corporate world and becoming an entrepreneur. And you know me, I didn't like to get up early anyway to go to school and teach anybody. So the beauty was that I learned everything from you. And from that, I was able to build a multi-million-dollar business as a single mom. And I appreciate everything that you've done for me in my life besides the friendship. But once again, it's who you meet and the wisdom of those people and how they guide you. And every time you meet someone, there's something else to learn. There's something else to hear. And as I said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So it's better to listen and to encourage people to just grow. And this industry allows you to grow because you're allowed to be around different people every day of your life and not be with the same people every day and leverage. And once again, there's just so much you can say about this industry, but I've been in it 35 years. I'd never go back to the corporate world where someone else owned my time. And that's what I wanted. I wanted my own time, and I wanted the ability to choose every day what I wanted to do and who I wanted to spend time with and who I wanted to develop and where I wanted to travel. And there's no other industry that you can do that to. And we as entrepreneurs and as business people should really open up the doors as you walk down the street to all the small businesses, because if you watch the way the Internet is driven and the way that people are going to be out of business and how many people are going to be unemployed, it's time to really reach out and start relationships with these people, because most of these people will not own businesses in 5 years, and they're going to be looking for another way to survive this world. So...
Exactly.
And that's how I feel.
Exactly. And Arlene is one of my longest-term people that I've worked with. Even though we're not in the same company, we still work together. We still counsel each other. We still advise each other. And if you've ever been around Arlene, she's got a tremendous amount of energy, and she still does. And after, 3+ decades, still a leader in her particular company. Let me go over to somebody that I've known a short time. 21 years old, has been applying some of this information for his business, done extremely well in his company. He's a leader. He's an emerging leader. He's well known not only here in the United States, but internationally. He's building an organization. John, are you with us?
Yes, right here.
Okay, now 21 years old. I mean, I have one kid that's older than you, which really makes me feel bad, but more important than that, you've applied some of the information. I know the 10-penny principle we've talked about, some of the other concepts that are in the book, but why don't you share with everybody a little bit about, what you're doing, what you're building on, and what you've been able to do as a result of some of the information that is there?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for me, it's always a pleasure to work with John, to speak to John. I mean, every time I speak to him, I feel like I'm a superstar, if I'm honest. But again, just speaking to John and just gathering his wisdom is great. So, just to give you a little story of who I am, I started when I was 19. I was always in love with the industry, of the idea of start from scratch, build something, as large as you want it. And, it's like I always said, free money is something. It's freedom. And if you can make an impact and also get freedom to do the things you want, then perfect. And then, I did that with network marketing. So that's why the network marketing concept just made sense to me from literally day one. And, again, my dream was always to be an entrepreneur. So, but again, going back to John's book, I think just one of the things that John's book helped me a lot is not only the strategies, but on, if John can do it, I can do it, right? Because, he started young as me. The 10-30 principle is brilliant because, it keeps you active. We are creatures of habit, right? So if you can just create a new habit of just speaking to more people or connecting with more people, then in this industry, it's amazing because, we really are just conversation starters, right? So just, again, the 10-30 principle was amazing. And I remember my first month of the business, I actually used the 10-30 principles, and I got a bunch of customers just because of that habit. So it's fantastic. But, again, one of the things that helped me most is just to see how this industry, a lot of people, especially when I was 19, a lot of people really wanted, to put me down. Just because, hey, you're starting this industry, no one makes money there, right? That's what they say. It's one of those things. It's just a little, of course, in my company, it's just a little product, won't do much. Just all these disbeliefs that what I was doing was just not a good career at all. But, again, sticking to this book, seeing how professional this industry is, not only for young guys like me, but for professionals. Athletes, doctors, MDs, PhDs. When I saw that PhDs, MDs, a lot of them are in the network marketing industry, and they're making more money, and they're actually doing more of an impact than even in their respective careers. Then I was like, no, this is a career, yes or yes. So, again, John's book, The 10-30 Principle, is fantastic. How to professionalize the industry and how professional the industry is just great. And, and another thing is how it's really, this business is really three things. Build relationships, gather raving fan customers, recruit and duplicate. That's it. Build relationships, gather raving fan customers, recruit business builders, and then duplicate. And then in John's book, it basically covers that. How can you build relationships better? How can you gather customers? How can you recruit business builders? And then how can you duplicate that? Once you master those 4 skills, then really the sky's the limit. So, yeah, there you go. That's what I can say.
Great. And, something, because now this is funny. Now you're not in my downline in my current company. We happen to be in the same company, but we've become friends, right? And we're talking, the book, when it came out a couple weeks ago digitally, you were going to read it that weekend. It was a Friday afternoon. I was sitting in Cornwall, Ontario, in front of my son's school, and we were chatting, and you made an incredible point. And I don't know if you remembered or not, but I know we went on a few minutes about it. But,
Remind me. I probably forgot.
You said, you know what? I figured out our business, any business really, but our business, is solving people's problems. If I can solve their problem, I can do business with them. And I thought that was right on. That's what everybody on this call, that's what we do. We solve people's problems, whether it's their health challenge with our products, whether it's that, hey, I need to fund my kid's college education fund, and I need some extra money, and I'm not getting at my job. How can you help me? How can I, as a small business expert, lead you and show you how to build a business? Right on. And that's the level of thinking that's going to make you incredibly successful, to say the least. And I wish I was 21 and could work side by side with you. But unfortunately, I don't have a magic pill for that. But there's a couple other people I want to call on fast. I know Foster Russo, are you with us up in Toronto? Were you able to get on?
John, I am. I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you can just share a couple of comments quick here. A couple other people to get to, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, a lot has been said this afternoon. Again, congratulations to you, John, and the team who put this together. And Tracy, thank you for making the time this afternoon. It's amazing what a book can do. And in our particular case, I think it can do so many things. But let me even talk to those who are in our particular company and to really see how you can capitalize on this in terms of recruiting. Earlier this afternoon, I was just finishing. just finishing a quick presentation, and you know, I had to be on the call, but I was on mute. And then, you know, in a form of edification, I said to this lady, her name is Sheila, I said, you know, the author of this book, he's the guy you're going to be meeting on October 6th in Toronto. She goes, really? So there are so many different aspects in how you're going to use this book. Number one, for me personally, for edification. Number two, for education. You know, it wasn't long ago that I shared something with a group that I said, you know, there's something about an applied knowledge, you know, because education is literally, you know, the inoculation against distractions. When you know what to do, you know, you become undefeated champion in your own game. And for me, you know, on a daily basis, I make it a must to apply the 10-penny principle on, you know, it wasn't long ago, precisely September 14th here in Toronto. You know, I share with a group of people for them to see what I do on a daily basis with dates attached with names of people that I meet on a daily basis. And some of these people are now in the game and, you know, going back with relationship building. You don't get everybody to join your team the same day, the same month, but guess what? Over time, though, you're going to have a long list of people to talk to. And these are some of the reasons why, you know, even though it's a level playing field, the ones who actually go and get the work done always see the results. So I'm excited. Our team have put together, you know, a strategy how we're going to really, you know, get this book in the hands of every single consultant that join our team. For us, this is going to become the book among many books that we're going to be reading, but this book is going to be a must for our group. So, John, back to you. I'm excited. On the road driving at the moment, but you're going to be hearing a lot of me raving about this book. Yeah.
Thanks, Foster. Janice Miller, I know you wanted to add a couple of things, and then we have one other quick speaker after that.
Well, I'm just excited to get this book out to as many people as I can because, yes, I had the privilege of meeting Charles Tremendous Jones and was there with Keith and loved the concept of putting our business card or stamping it into the book and giving the books out to people that we think enough of to share great information. Excited to be one of the people in the book because, yeah, I got bragging rights. Hey, I'm in this book, and this is for you, and I'm going to give it away. Looking forward to ordering a whole bunch.
Great. And you know, it really is that simple, just to you know, hey, I'm a small business expert, and yeah, maybe you don't want to use those words with everybody, but really, what are we trying to do? We're trying to lead people into the small business world, 30 million people strong in the U.S., 4 million people strong in Canada already. And by the way, one thing I don't want you to lose sight of, existing small business owners are entrepreneurs for a reason. I use one fast example. I had a guy in Western Canada at one of my prior companies, and this fellow Jack and his wife were extremely successful in the agriculture business. They actually sold bull embryos around the world, and extremely successful, did tremendously well, big operation, lots of employees. And Jack got in our business and became one of our top distributors. And I remember talking to him and his wife one day, and it was such a funny conversation. I said, how in the world do you guys find time? And they had young kids at the time, and they said, because we're small business experts. We know how to do business, and we find time to get things done. So, you know, that guy that's got the local landscaping business or the local painting business or the local insurance agent, hey, you know what? He or she or that couple, they will find the time if they're already self-employed because they have the discipline of already being self-employed. So, you know, don't lose sight of those people either. You know, we want the people who aren't in business, but we want the people who are in business as well, you know. So, all right, Keith, I'm waiting for one other quick caller here, and she dropped off for 1 second. She's texting me back. You want to take it for 1 minute, and I'm just going to three-way her in.
All right, we can do that, John. So once again, you know, go to Tremendous Leadership, and you're going to want to place those orders. So, Tracy, as the world is changing, you know, and the value of a library and how to read a book, I think it's that was one of the things that your dad was about, that, you know, make notes in it and
Yeah.
own the book. And
Oh,
don't
yes.
give a book away without your information in it, right?
Absolutely. And anytime you're sitting anywhere, you have that pad of paper because they show that, the more you write down when you're reading or you're listening to somebody talk, your odds of retaining it go up exponentially. So, yeah, mark that book up, dog ear, scribble in it, and then give it to people. And I love seeing when I get a book that somebody else has marked up because I'm like, oh, they like that. And I do book club discussions in prisons. I was in 2 state corrections institutes yesterday reading about personal development books and leadership books. And they delight when somebody will say, I love this one quote. And the other inmates are like, me too. It's just really exciting.
Yeah. So once again, books are important. It was always interesting. There's a number of books that I've gotten from your company, your dad's company, from over the years, and it was the wisdom is incredible. And unfortunately, most of those people, you're never going to sit down to dinner with them because they wrote those books many, 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 many years ago. But for a small amount of money, you can get an incredible amount of wisdom from them. I always like the statement: somebody spends a large amount of their life putting their thoughts on paper and getting that book printed, and for a few dollars and an hour of your time, you can understand what they think is important. And I think that's just so incredible that we're able to leverage that. So, all right, John.
Unfortunately, the last person I was going to have talk is somebody that she's sitting on an airplane, and she just told me her plane's about to take off. So we're going to lose her. So with that, listen, I want to thank everybody. Love your feedback. We'll have additional calls on this. This is a concept, once again, as you start to work with it, you're going to come back and say, hey, I shared this with somebody, and I recruited them into my business. And here's the results, and here's what I said, and here's what I did, and here's what they said, and here's what they did. And, you're going to start to have that. So I'd like to continue to communicate. It doesn't have to be every week. I know everybody's busy building their downlines and everything else that's going on. But every couple of weeks I'll shoot you an email. As you start to get the books physically here in the next week, if you've ordered them already, please, feedback on Facebook. Okay, let's get this message out here. Remember, this is your stories that are in there. We just happen to be the guys that put them together. But, at the end of the day, these are your stories. So take advantage of them, recruit people, help people. That's really what our business is about at the end of the day. The more people we help, the more income we make, and this book is hopefully going to be a great tool for you all to do that. So, Keith, I had nothing else on my end. I want to thank everybody and wish everybody a great weekend here, and thanks again, and anything I can do, you all have my cell and my email and my Facebook and all my other apparatuses you can get a hold of me on.
Absolutely. So with that, have a great day, everybody. Enjoy your weekend.
Congratulations to you. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody.
Give them a
Thanks, guys. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.